You're watching Drakewing Gaming. Enjoy the video.
You guys and gals, Never here from Drakewing Gaming, and something on Twitter, the Gaming Dragon. Today I'm coming back at you with a Let's Play episode of Temptation's Ballad. So y'all, let's go ahead and jump right back into it, shall we? Alarm chain, you are up, and let's go. We're about to fight that creepy hand thing. Alright. Excuse me, huh? Slowly, the gray flesh pulled itself together from its puddle on the floor, rearranging itself into the shape of a strange five-fingered hand. As the mask struggled to stand upright, a sickly, sterile scent hit Sidd's nose and his gut churned uncomfortably. Everything about this creature screamed that it was wrong. It didn't belong here. The fragment's writhing stopped abruptly. Sidd's fur stood on end. This thing had no eyes, no face, no discernible features at all. But he had an uncanny feeling he had just noticed them. Yeah. Whoa, that is not good. Trembling gray fingers unfurled, revealing a single bloodshot crimson eye. It twitched, iris dilating as it fixed its gaze upon them. A gaze thick with judgment, indignation, fury. An unearthly shriek ripped through the air as the creature let out a furious, pained wail from the depths of the injustice it had suffered. Oh god, what language? Sidd's head throbbed as incomprehensible, otherworldly words carved through his mind. He couldn't grasp his exact meaning, but the pleading desperation bled through like a gaping wound. Oh. A steady torrent of tears poured from the fragment's single bloodshot eye, pooling onto the floor and slowly flooding the room. Then, it approached. It was slow, creeping forward inch by inch, but it approached nonetheless, like a predator stalking its prey. Sidd's hand flew to the lanius, the silver halberd springing to its full length as he crouched into a battle stance next to a stunned Calder. Stay behind me! I'll keep its attention. You back me up from range, okay? I don't think y'all can do anything to that. The noble looked pale as he clutched his tome tightly. I've never been in a real fight before. I won't be much use. We should probably retreat and find backup. Sidd shook his head firmly. A bunch of these things already escaped into the city. We need to take care of this one while we still can. The reasoning was fair, brave even. But Sidd would be lying if he said it was the only reason. The smaller, selfish part of him couldn't help but realize he's never been in a real fight either. Not really. The fighting ring, the sparring with the bone breakers, the brawling tournament, all of it was practice with a referee standing at the ready. While Sidd was busy being babysat, Cole was fighting for his life against a demon, and Artemy obliterated all her opposition like an oncoming storm. His grip around the lanius tightened. The idea of retreating from the first real sign of danger, empty-handed with his tail tucked between his legs, well, some of Calder's words rang true. People wanted results, no matter how politely they received you. The noble seemed to echo his thoughts as he swallowed down his fear and pulled out his quill. You are impossible. If we die because of your constant need to play hero, I'm going to find a necromancer to bring you back so I can kill you myself. Sidd shot him a wry smile. You're gonna have to tell my mom that I died on your watch first. Terrifying. I'd rather join you in hell. Guess you gotta watch my back and make sure I don't die, huh? Yet another thankless job I've been indentured into. The price of your inn is absurd. Calder did his best to sound displeased, but his voice steadied with a hint of amusement as he stood steadfast at Sidd's side. The badger's chest fluttered lightly before he turned to face the monstrosity before him. Strange water pouring from the fragment flooded the room, lapping gently at his feet. It burned slightly against his skin, but didn't seem to do any real damage other than filling the air with a thick, sterile stench of celestial magic. Jesus. The fragment's eye widened and a golden wall of light filled his vision. Sidd and Calder reacted instinctively. The badger swung an extended lanius in an attempt to parry while the noble raised his hand, a counterspell at the tip of his tongue. None of it mattered. The torrent of light washed away Calder's feeble flicker of magic and surged past the silver halberd like a rushing ocean wave. Sidd immediately turned and lunged for the stunned noble. The two of them tumbled away, but not before the celestial wave glanced off Sidd's left flank. It burned. A sickly, sterile stench filled his nose as a biting numbness gnawed through his left abdomen. All the breath left his lungs as he fell, hunching protectively over a breathless Calder. There was a gray burn across his skin, like the color was drained from his flesh. It wasn't painful exactly, but it felt wrong. Like the way his legs would buzz with uncomfortable static after sitting for too long. Sidd jumped as he felt Calder's shaky hand press against his wound, his brow furrowed with worry. Are you alright? That was utterly foolish! You're making this whole keeping you alive thing much more difficult than it needs to be! Just fine, thanks. It looks worse than it feels. You alright yourself? I'm completely fine because some buffoon threw himself in front of me. Try not to squawk about it, at least. I heard that, you ingrate. Move! A fireball erupted from Calder's outstretched hand towards the approaching monstrosity. The fragment didn't even flinch as the flames batted against its gray flesh and quickly pittered out. Sidd leapt to his feet and attempted to follow up with a swipe of his halberd, but the blade lodged deep into the creature's thick skin like an axe to an oversized tree. In a split second, Sidd was distracted while retrieving his weapon. The fragment took a swipe at him with its long, gnarled fingers. The badger wheezed as he flew backwards, knocking into Calder as the Lanius clattered to the floor beside them. Oh! Ugh! We can't even scratch it! Huh! Oh! I wouldn't say that. There's a rather sizable notch on its head thanks to you. My pathetic little fireball, on the other hand. The air surged with static as the fragment charged up another celestial blast. Thinking quick, Sidd flipped the Lanius around and aimed its pointed handle. In an instant, the weapon extended. The spike of its handle shot out and speared the creature's massive eye. Without a pained shriek, gray fingers knocked away the offending weapon before gingerly cradling the fresh wound. Sidd's triumph was short-lived as he watched the injured flesh quickly mold itself back to its original shape. Behind him, Calder let another half-hearted fireball that quickly fizzled out against the creature's cool flesh. I know wizards cast fireball as a popular joke, but is that really the only spell you know? Listen here, you oaf. This is the only offensive spell I have prepared. I wasn't exactly expecting to fight an eldritch abomination today. Would you rather I spend 10 minutes scribbling a ritual spell while you fight for your life? At this point, sure. Is it a good spell? Calder looked more startled by his sudden approval than the hulking abomination crawling their way. One second, y'all. It is water time. Alright, guys and gals, and we are back. Alright. Sidd hissed and grabbed the noble by the collar of his shirt. He ignored Calder's indignant squawks. This is handcrafted velvet, you cretin! And lunged just as the fragment's finger extended like pale whips. Sidd dipped and weaved evasively across the room as the tendrils thrashed wildly, cracking the concrete walls and floor where it made contact. He skid to a stop right behind the creature, his heart leaping as an opportunity presented itself. The fragment was slow to turn around. Sidd had a clear shot at the notched wound on the top of its head. I have to make it count, Sidd hissed to himself. His grip around the Lanius tightened. The traitorous corner of his mind piped up yet again. Marrow would fare much better in this situation with his monstrous strength and his axe's anti-magic properties. Artemy would have made short work of the creature with her ridiculous magical capacity, but neither of them were here right now. There was only him, and that would have to be enough. As though in response to his thoughts, the cool metal of the Lanius hummed beneath his grip as he glared at the fragment's offending wound. He'll need to hit harder than before. Stronger. Oh! Instinct took over. The Lanius grew even heavier, ever heavier in his grip as Sidd raised it high above his head. Oh! The single cleave of the fragment's gnarled flesh parted clean in two. Sidd let out a relieved breath as what remained of the creature splattered onto the floor. He did it. The danger was over. The badger's chest fluttered as he held the Lanius close. Even if he was entirely outclassed by his friends, at least he could still hold his own in battle. He wondered if Cole would be pleased if he were here to see this. Stay focused! The two smaller mounds of gray flesh pulsated violently before tendrils shot out from their fresh, gaping wounds. Sidd watched in horror as the tendrils rapidly folded into themselves, reshaping the puddles of flesh into something more coherent. Ew! Soon, two vaguely quadruped creatures stood in the mound's place with sickly fingers and limbs covering every inch of their colorless bodies. Calder grabbed his sleeve, pulling him back urgently. I think these Celestials are like demons. Immortal. If you cut them down, they'll just reform with time. I don't think we have any way to kill them permanently. That would have been nice to know a little earlier. Sorry, I wasn't sure until I saw it happen with my own eyes. I know I haven't been particularly useful, but... Oof. The smaller fragment's skull suddenly opened up, revealing wide, accusing crimson eyes. Sidd's breath hitched as the air suddenly charged up with heavy static. Oh god! Ah! He grabbed Calder and tried to leap out of the way again. Dealing with two simultaneous smaller beams proved more difficult than before. One blast met its mark, hitting him directly on his left leg. Sidd bit his lip as he felt the sterile numbness immediately bleed up his knee, the limb collapsing under his own weight. Squirming out of his grip, Calder threw another feeble fireball and forced the two fragments to scatter. He turned towards the Badger furiously. What is wrong with you? Stop throwing yourself into the fire for me, of all people! Just leave me! I'm not worth this! Sidd ignored him and squeezed his injured leg tentatively. The flesh felt cold to the touch, and its color drained and gray. It didn't seem like escape was an option for him anymore. He looked up, his glare cutting through the wizard's ramblings. You said you had an idea for a spell earlier. Think you can still do it? Calder gaped at him incredulously. Not like this! We're not going to survive the next few seconds, let alone 10 whole minutes. Not alone the 10 whole minutes I'll need to prepare the spell. And there's no guarantee it'll even work. Elanius shook with a solid thunk as Sidd speared into the ground. He placed all his weight into the axe, his muscles aching as he tried to rise to his feet. He hissed as his body failed. He fell back onto his knee. Stop this at once! We need to find a way to escape immediately! With what? I don't suppose you prepared a spell that can carry my crippled leg out of here along with all your fireballs. The words came out harsher than Sidd intended. Calder's shoulders fell, his entire figure deflating. Sidd softened. Hey, sorry, it's not what I meant. At this point, it looks like we'll have to stand our ground. You're the one with the brains. If you have a plan that can beat these monsters, I'm all ears. You can't be serious. You're risking your life on the word of the most pathetic wizard of the O'Shaughnessy line. Whoever has heard of spending 10 minutes ritual casting in the middle of a raging battle? My fireballs have all the potency of a wet sock, and I have the worst record of success out of everyone here. I got beaten by a buffoon with an oversized lute, and I can never do anything right. Hey, why would you even bother? Grandfather gave up on me long ago. A pathetic runt like me? What hope could there possibly be for... Hey! Sidd wrapped a hand around the shaking hyena with a steady squeeze. He stared firmly into the noble's tearful gaze. Stop talking about yourself like that. You're enough. But grandfather, your grandpa isn't here right now. I am. And I'm choosing to put my faith in you. Despite the noble's continued spluttering, the time for words had passed. Sidd turned to face the two quadrupeded fragments stalking them. Their skulls opened up again, flashing their dark crimson eyes. The Badger sucked in a deep breath before grabbing the handle of Elanius. He glanced back at Calder with a reassuring smile. You'll have as much time as I can give. Calder stuttered and allowed himself one more moment of hesitation, his eyes darting between the approaching monsters and Sidd shielding him with his burnt, gray-seared flesh. Without another word, the noble threw open his tome and began scribbling as quickly as his hands would allow. Thankfully, Sidd was slightly more prepared for the second round of blasts. Not that it did him much good. As the beams of celestial light shot towards him, the Badger swung his great axe like an oversized bat. The impact redirected one of the beams safely off course, but the other struck a glancing blow under Sidd's arm. Biting numbness spread across his ribs like frost, crawling up his trembling arm until he could no longer raise his weapon. Called out a distressed gasp behind him, but did not stop writing. Ugh! Sidd growled and staked Elanius into the floor, leaning all his weight to the weapon. It shimmered under his grip and in a flash of blue before returning to its halberd form. It was all he could do to stay upright. 10 minutes. I just need to last 10 minutes, Sidd thought as he struggled to grip his weapon with one arm. God, Sidd's gonna fucking die, isn't he? It was his first real fight and he could barely hold his own, let alone protect someone else. Alright, I'm going to pause it right there. Y'all want to continue this fight in the next video. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and check out our Patreon or YouTube memberships if you can. It always helps. Anyway, I love you all, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye!